For a game that was not originally on the schedule, that became the intriguing matchup of the weekend, it delivered. Coastal Carolina holds off BYU a la Super Bowl 2000 Rams Titans at the goal line on a completed pass at the 22-17. Great game, great finish. And we got Steve Helwick on the line from SB Nation's Hustle Belt and Underdog Dynasty to help us break it down. Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent. That was one of the best finishes we've seen all year, where as soon as the pass is complete, everyone just holds their collective breath and nobody knows who's going to win, because Dax Milne had some good momentum on that post route he ran, and Coastal Carolina's defense just put up a better play. They had, I think, 3 guys around him just stopping him from reaching the end zone. Now, a big portion of college football fans and Twitter promoted this game this week as the game of the week. You have 2 undefeated teams fighting for more respect, fighting for a better spot in the polls. And it exceeded expectations somehow, coming down to the final play and just producing an instant classic game. Great defensive performances all around. We saw a lot of thrilling plays in that game. BYU with the home run touchdowns, while Coastal Carolina kind of churned it out with long, methodical drives. And it just produced a great styles clash. And now we have the team of the year. 2020 is Coastal Carolina's year. This is America's team right now. The Chanticleers in their 4th year in the FBS are undefeated, and they might even be pushing the top 10 this week after a win like that and being the top of the Sun Belt right now. They've taken down 2 ranked teams this year in addition to a Big 12 team, so got to give credit to the Chanticleers for their improvement under Coach Jamie Chadwell.
Yeah, back to the final drive of the game. It was certainly a strategist dream to try to, go along with BYU in working its way down the field, because the probability was certainly not on their side. There wasn't a whole lot of time left. They used their final timeouts. They had a lot of ground to cover. They had a huge completion from like their own 5 or 10 yard line out to midfield that kind of put them in a position to at least have a shot. And they still only had about 25 seconds at that point. They even made really good use of the last 15 seconds to get it to 7 seconds. And then instead of going to the end zone, because they were still only at roughly the Coastal Carolina 45 yard line, they were able to dump in one other completion to the sideline to get them to where they could run a reasonable play, not just a Hail Mary, but run that slant pass that, again, you're with the defense, the opposing defense lined up as kind of a gate there at the goal line. That's pretty much the play that you're running, and then hoping, like you just mentioned, that the receiver with all that speed and all that steam can catch it. They still have to go 2 or 3 yards, but not able to complete the deal. So it was quite thrilling.
Yeah, I thought Kalani Sitake, the BYU offense, had some really good play calls there. You have Coastal Carolina in a more prevent zone defensive scheme there, and Zach Wilson was just exposing it. He had a really impressive pass completion to Gunnar Romney to really get that drive going. And then 3 straight passes to Dax Milne at the end of the drive, picked up a lot of yards there. I think he had 6 straight completions to cover 90 yards of field. And even though Zach Wilson did not have a good game by any means, by his standards, that's what elite quarterbacks do at the end of the game on drives like that. And at that point, it's just if Milne gets an extra yard, BYU wins the game. Zach Wilson puts together the best drive of the college football season, and the Cougars are still undefeated and in the top 10.
Now, Steve, you are certainly one of the guys that I know that covers Group of 5 across the nation and knows it as well or better than anyone I know. People knew about Zach Wilson regardless. He's a star. But the quarterback, Grayson McCall, on the other side is certainly somebody that I've heard you talk about in the past that you have been watching for quite a long time. And his multiple skill set just as a leader, both passer and runner, were on display.
Yes, he's a really good decision maker. And as a passer, he is the only quarterback in college football with 20 touchdown passes and as few as 1 interception. And he makes smart decisions, and he's a very accurate quarterback. I don't think Coastal Carolina required him to throw very much today. It seemed like he just had a few check down throws throughout the game, 10 to 15, didn't even have 100 passing yards. But as a runner, he's tough. And one thing that he does well as a runner is he times his option pitches very well. There's a lot of speed options that Coastal Carolina runs in this offense. And he always seems to be on the same page as his running back, CJ Marable, because his pitch timing to Marable is excellent. Marable just dominated today with 132 rushing yards. So when you have a quarterback there that has that skill set as a smart decision maker in the passing game and smart decision maker in the run game, plays a lot of winning football. Grayson McCall doesn't turn over the ball very often, and I think that always gives you a chance to win, especially when your defense is playing as well as the Black Swarm, they call it, from Coastal Carolina.
Certainly credit both teams on this one and both programs to schedule this so quickly. BYU to travel 2,200 miles, I think, was the figure that was cited during the game broadcast, to come all the way across country for the most part and take on a very difficult opponent where the coaching staffs have to game plan, watch a ton of film, get their teams prepared. And we have no idea how that really factored into it, but it certainly it has its ramifications of trying to put together a game plan against an unfamiliar opponent that quickly, but not overload your team with too much and keep it simple. But for this, and critics might say, okay, well, they played each other. Coastal Carolina didn't go out and play Oklahoma, and BYU didn't go play Wisconsin. But at the same time, I think just if you watched the game, knowing again, Zach Wilson's a known commodity, knowing the BYU offense is going to put up those kind of numbers against just about anybody in the country, for Coastal Carolina to give up 17 fairly early and then to really stifle that BYU offense for pretty much the second half is pretty astounding.
Yes, BYU scored 2 touchdowns this game, and usually BYU's putting in backup quarterback Baylor Romney by the fourth quarter, beating a team like 45-10. And Coastal Carolina is not that team with the defense that they had, and they really gave BYU a lot of tough looks. Only times they got in the end zone was a 42-yard run by Tyler Algier, and a 41 pass completion by Dax Milne. I thought the Coastal Carolina defense played with so much fire and so much intensity. At some points, it seems like the intensity was taken up too many notches, like when Zach Wilson threw that interception before halftime, and you have Teddy Gallagher and you have Jeffrey Gunter having that 2-man blocking on Zach Wilson. After that, I thought Zach Wilson was going to be like Michael Jordan in The Last Dance and say, I take this personally, and just drop 300 passing yards in the second half on him. I mean, we've seen BYU do that this year. When they played Houston, they were down 26-14 in that game. And then Zach Wilson just entered some inferno mode where he couldn't miss a single pass, and BYU wins that game 43-26. I thought that was going to happen. Coastal Carolina is a good team, and I knew that they were legitimate this year when they knocked off Louisiana, the same team that beat Iowa State by 3 scores this year. And Coastal Carolina never bent, never folded in this game. It was a one-possession game throughout the entire time, and they played so well on defense. I thought this BYU offense was probably going to drop at least 40 points on them, and I thought the 10.5-point spread was kind of justified before the game, considering BYU's past data points this year outside of the UTSA game. But Coastal Carolina just had a heck of a performance offensively and really did well controlling clock and controlling the game with the run game. I think they had 38 minutes of possession, which gives BYU fewer opportunities and fewer drives to correct their offense. So they really game planned this well for the limited time that they had. But remember, Coastal Carolina is used to this. Earlier this season, I know it's Kansas, but they had a game against Kansas that was supposed to be in Conway, South Carolina. And at the last minute, they had to switch it to Lawrence, Kansas. They went up there. They beat down the Jayhawks badly, and they've been on that roll ever since that game. They can adjust to anything, and this team is a team of destiny right now.
So once again, in a very entertaining clash between 2 undefeated teams, Coastal Carolina holds off in, again, the 2000 Super Bowl style goal line standoff, the completed slant pattern. Coastal Carolina wins it over BYU 22-17. The Chanticleers now at 10-0. BYU falls to 9-1. And so now, Steve, we've got a situation in which they've got a road game due Coastal Carolina at Troy, and then Louisiana, the aforementioned Louisiana team at 10-1 for the Sun Belt Conference Championship. And what a tilt that should be.
Yes, I think they should be able to get by Troy. Troy did shut out South Alabama today. But Troy has struggled against the Sun Belt's elite, namely in a game against App State the previous week. So I don't have too many concerns about Coastal against Troy. But that Coastal Carolina versus Louisiana game, we're going to have the first ranked Sun Belt championship game in history. The Sun Belt's getting better, is improving more than any conference just across the board. When you see what they did to the Big 12 this year on week 1 with Arkansas State taking down Kansas State in Manhattan and Iowa State losing to Louisiana by 3 touchdowns in Ames, the Sun Belt has really taken a rise in the upper echelon of the conference this year. And that Louisiana App State on Friday night was a tremendous game between 2 powerful teams in the conference. And this year it's going to be a rematch between Coastal Carolina and Louisiana for the championship game. That's already set in stone. Round 1, which was on a Wednesday night back earlier in the fall, did not fail to deliver, and it came down to a game-winning kick for Coastal Carolina. And I think it's going to be a close game that comes down to something similar this time. Both teams are stacked on defense. Both teams have really good dual-threat quarterbacks in Grayson McCall and Levi Lewis, and a bunch of other offensive weapons, namely in the rushing game with C.J. Marable and Elijah Mitchell. So I think that's going to be one of the best conference championship games, outside of maybe Clemson, Notre Dame, and Florida, Alabama this year.
Well, 2020 has provided a lot of stress and unpredictability for all of us, and certainly on these football players and football programs. But if there's a crowning moment to all of it, there have been a number of games that have come together that we didn't anticipate because of the teams and the programs and the conferences being flexible. But this one was certainly the crowning jewel to all that in regards to 2 teams getting together and having the gamesmanship to compete on the field and lay it all on the line. Coastal wins the 22-17 Sun Belt Conference Championship in 2 weeks against Louisiana. Should be a great game. Steve Helwig, you got to catch his work there at you've got Underdog Dynasty, also Hustle Belt. Follow him on Twitter as well. Steve, appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks. Ready to watch the rest of the night of college football.
Absolutely.